episode of Progress, Potential, and Possibilities, discussions with fascinating people designing a better tomorrow for all of us. I'm your host, Ira Pastor. Welcome, everybody, again to another episode of our show, bringing you another fascinating guest today, helping to create a better tomorrow on many different fronts. We have the honor today of being joined by Dr. Hamed Faridi, who is Executive Director of the McCormick Science Institute, part of the McCormick organization, the world's largest spice company. He has been referred to over the last several decades as the voice of science for their organization, and had really transformed their R&D program over the years to one of the most innovative in the industry. He is ultimately a renowned food industry leader. He has in the past led a team of upwards of 500 scientists responsible for various areas of thought leadership, scientific research, product development, health and wellness, and sustainability. He was responsible back in 2013 for a fascinating artificial intelligence platform development in the food and flavor space. He is extremely well published, 6 books, dozens of scientific articles in food science and technology, has been guest lecturer at conferences and research institutes around the world. Prior to joining the organization, he was on the faculty of Washington State University, held R&D executive positions at the Nabisco Group, received his master's and his PhD both in food science from Kansas State University, his MBA from Fairleigh Dickinson University, and really have a lot of very exciting things to talk with him about. And he is truly a treasure trove of knowledge in this space. So we are really lucky to have him. Dr. Hamed Faridi, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show today.
A pleasure.
It's great seeing you as usual. I'd love to start off, as we typically do, by handing you the floor for a little bit, just to talk a little bit more about yourself and your background. If you could take us on a little journey, everything from where you grew up, a little bit about how you developed those interests in food science, and if you could take us to that point where you were first given the first book, I think by the education minister on the medicinal plants of Iran back in the day, that got you started on this fascinating journey. I think that'd be a great way to go for this audience.
Thank you, Ira. Whenever I want to introduce myself, I always introduce it with 3 words. And incidentally, all 3 of them start with the letter L. So I call them my 3 L's. And those 3 L's have been my guiding post and North Star for everything that I have done for all my life. Those 3 L's are loving, learning, and legacy. So loving is the platform that I have built my life on, from my family and my professional life that I always consider my second family. I have a loving relationship, and everything that I do is based on the platform of love. And that has enriched my life enormously. I'm very thankful for that. The second L of my life is learning. I have an insatiable appetite for learning. I was destined to be a scientist, to always look for something new, for something exciting, always looking for something unknown to discover. So that has been something that keeps me going, even to this age, is to discover something new and exciting. So learning is a really big player to me. And the last L is legacy. And legacy, it gives meaning to my being. And it's something that I always have a very long view of everything that I do. And that is probably the most important for our conversation today. Because, as you mentioned, and I read a book on medicinal herbs and spices, when I was 14 or 15 years old, and I got fascinated with the role of food and nutrition on public health, how we can do things that really that everyday person can benefit from and make it happen for everyone. So that piece, legacy, is something that I really had been my guiding post for everything that I have done, including the McCormick Science Institute. I really believe in it, that even, say, 30, 40 years from now, or even in 2089, when is the 200th anniversary of formation of the McCormick and Company, which is an outstanding, a magnificent company. When people want to write about the past 200 years of McCormick's successes and many, many contributions to the humanity, to the community, and everything else. One of the items that they will talk about it is the McCormick Science Institute, because it was a very timely thing to do, and it just is one of a kind. Actually, there is no other model for McCormick Science Institute, and I'm sure that it will continue to thrive for the next 20, 30, 40 years. I think there's the future of what we want to do, because we really are marrying the taste and flavor and the goodness of spice and herbs with health and enjoyable eating and sustainability. So we are talking about something that is at the zenith of nutrition, taste, and sustainability. And it's a very unique organization that I will get into it a little bit. But if you look at for example, last 16 years that we have been in operation, we had benefited from stewardship of 3 CEOs, and also the financial stewardship of 3 CFOs. Mm-hmm. In all these years, I've never heard any of those, executive responsible for the company, ever ask me to do something with the program that I have with the McCormick Science Institute. I've never been asked about financial return or the budget and so forth. They have kept this completely independent of the company, and they trusted not only the me and the team, also the scientific advisory council that we have, that they are the blue ribbon scientists around the world who really guide us through all the different things. So I think there was a professor at New York University. His name was Professor Ludwig Mises. He actually was also an economist, also a Holocaust survivor. And he said something about that. He said the history of mankind is a history of ideas. So ideas are very important, but idea by itself doesn't do anything. You got to have, a sponsorship. You got to have commitment. You got to have, perseverance. All of these things. And McCormick Science Institute is really is the culmination of all those things. And we have not really, the beauty of it is that we haven't changed the last 16 years. From day one, the management committee of the company that really oversees all the activities of the company put some guiding rays for us. And one of them is that McCormick Science Institute is all about science. So we are not allowed to do any lobbying. We never endorse any product. We never endorse any brand. So we are really independent, run by the Scientific Advisory Council. We are not asking for any IP. Everything that we do is public. So it's available to everyone. And, go back to the McCormick Science Institute, why it started, because there are 3,000 or 4,000 years of empirical and observational data about the goodness of spice and herbs. Yep. But we wanted to create a science because there is a lot of work has been done in the past 100 years on bioactives that there are naturally in spice and herbs, but they have always been on the pharmaceutical level. So they have extracted a compound from cinnamon or from black pepper or from turmeric, and then isolated it, synthesized it, and really concentrated it, and they use it as pharma. And then they do other things to it to make the molecule more absorbable, more effective, and all of these things. But we wanted to focus only on basically something that is a culinary level, that an average consumer would delightfully eat during a daytime, or breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So it was from that point is that it was a very unique thing that it really, I'm very lucky that we had the insightful stewardship of this to McCormick and Company, and so we can continue our work, and we are thriving. Actually, today we have more programmed clinical trials in the hopper than ever in the past. So the McCormick Science is not slowing down. And you remember that business goes through cycles. So we had like a 2008 or 2009 that there was a significant issue with the market and so forth. But support of McCormick and Company for McCormick Science Center has never gone through ups and downs. Always consistent, always unequivocal support that we have. So we have, I feel very lucky. This is something that, if we talk about legacy, it's not only me, because we have a big team that we are doing it, but it's really one of those legacy programs that it happens only once in a lifetime. And I feel extremely fortunate to be right in the middle of it.
Yeah, and the success that you're having, and we'll get into some of the clinical trials in a minute, in taking things to this level. It speaks, really to your vision, and it's just so, I've watched you over the years developing this from a distance, and it's just, as you said in the past when we've chatted a bit, here we are. I'm in my house here. I have this medicine cabinet upstairs, but I have this other medicine cabinet. Well, we all have this other medicine cabinet called the spice cabinet, and we're just beginning to really appreciate the treasure trove of what's in there. And as you were saying, in terms of our pharma colleagues over here, they want to purify and patent certain molecules, but there's a lot to be said in those fascinating combinatorial libraries of substances that nature provides us via the spice cabinet. And I just like to go into a couple of these. I think it'd be great just to start off, I think, with one of the most recent, which was a clinical trial that you and the NIH supported actually down the road here at Penn State. It was studying herbs and spices in a randomized crossover controlled feeding study in cardiometabolic health. And this is, another fascinating thing. I'd love for you to sort of talk about, once again, sort of how McCormick Science Institute decides to do specifically this work, how you go about funding the researchers. But at the same time, I've had, blood pressure issues since I was in my 20s. I understand. I have this McCormick salt-free spice combination that, it tastes great. I can get rid of my salt, but at the same time, that celery seed is a great vasodilator, and that pepper is a great anti-inflammatory. Really, that combinatorial component of what we're receiving, as opposed to sort of the purified drug entities. Take us through a little bit of that vision as well.
Sure. Since its inception, we really gone through several phases. Like we call it, just like everybody else, we call it MSI 1.0, MSI 2.0, and so forth. We really try to answer a few questions that we had. The number one question, is there any beneficial bioactives in spice and herbs at the culinary level? We already knew that those exist at the pharma level, but there was no documentation anywhere that there is a beneficial bioactive at the culinary level that is also absorbable and bioavailable to body. That was one of the first questions. And so we started with that, really like a MSI 1.0, and all the studies that we did demonstrated that yes, it happens. The second question was that, okay, if they exist, do they have any health benefits? Again, at the culinary level, no one knew about it. So we did all the studies that demonstrated, yes, there are health benefits of spice and herbs at the culinary level in humans. So that was a very, very encouraging thing. The next one was really focused on, would spice and herb are capable of making healthy food enjoyable and fun and experience? So that was a series of research and clinical trials that we did. So that demonstrated that definitely yes. And the next one was that would spice and herb be able to, at the culinary level again, to be able to partially substitute, add a salt, add a saturated fat, and add a sugar in the food system. And we did a test in several different universities with under IRB they're all registered with the federal government, and demonstrated yes, you can do that. You can reduce calorie, salt, fat, and sugar by making food even more tasty. People will like it even more. And then the next one was is the spice and herbs, and what we do, is just any value in helping with the implementation of dietary guidelines for Americans, which is probably one of the most important programs in food and nutrition anywhere in the world, actually, because other countries emulate what the US government does in this area. And again, we have demonstrated, yes, that we can be of value for the policymakers to help with the implementation of the dietary guideline for Americans. Now, there are some questions that we still have that we are, for example, one of them is one of the platforms today that is a topic of conversation about precision nutrition. This is the federal government is now having multi-center activities funding for this. So is it like a personalized nutrition on a steroid? What is the precision nutrition? What is the role of spice? Is a spice and herb can help? The other one is that is now becoming very popular, is something that Hippocrates said several thousand years ago, that let food be your medicine and medicine your food. Actually, this is attributed to him. It's not proven that he actually said that, but in a public information is that Hippocrates said that. But now there is a platform called Food as Medicine. Yep. There's a lot of research being done, outstanding research in all different corners of the world on this. Again, we are testing that how spice and herb at the culinary level can help with that platform. And the big one that we now will be working in the next several years is about the role of spice and herbs on the life quality and longevity. With people who consume flavorful, healthy eating, that is something that is use the spice, the goodness of spice and herb to manage the level of salt, saturated fat, and and add a sugar. At the same time, benefit from the bioactives that are naturally inherent in the spice and herbs, and at the same time make food more enjoyable and experience. Because if the food is not fun, enjoyable, and experience, people wouldn't eat it. So if you combine all of these things, would that help with the longevity and quality of life? And that is something that we are now looking for all kinds of research on this area, and hopefully for the next, it will take time, but it will show that if there is or not, but we believe that there is.
And continue along the lines, you're working, you had, this major study in cardiometabolic recently. You're also funding, there's some really interesting, I think it was UCLA, where you're looking at cinnamon, which is another of the, sort of the hot spices nowadays in terms of everything you can do. And I went into PubMed a little before we talked, and it's just amazing. You think you're going to get back only a couple papers, but it's just amazing the treasure trove. You've been studying sort of the ability of cinnamon to impact. You just put a little of this in your breakfast, whether it's the oatmeal or what have you, and all sorts of, once again, combinatorial biologic effects, glucose on insulin, on glucagon. Again, take us through a little bit on if I'm a researcher at Penn State or UCLA, what do I have to do to work with you? Do I come to you? Are you specifically looking for certain therapeutic niches? Is it broadly health and wellness? Like how does it work?
I think that we are probably from that standpoint one of a kind, because it's extremely easy to work with us. So we have no agenda, we have no directive to do something specifically in any area. So the scientists that we know and the principal investigators, either we approach them or they approach us. Most of the things that we approach them is because they are scientific advisory council. We have regular contact with them, but we meet at least once a year and for a couple of days, and they would identify areas that we need to work on. So either the scientists approach us, and then we look at it, would that fit in to the guidelines that we have from the McCormick and Company on what is what McCormick Science Team is supposed to do? For example, is it really scientific? Is it rigorous enough that could be published in a referee journal? Is it using spice and herbs at the culinary level? Is it, because we don't ask for IP, we always provide funding as a gift. So there is no bells and whistles associated with it. When we provide the funding, we really leave the principal investigators alone. So they would tell us whenever they want about what they do and so forth. We work with them, so we are always aware of the kind of thing, but they have 100% independence. That's why the people that we have worked with, they stay with us, because this is is a breath of fresh air for them, because we are not asking for anything. Actually, that's one of the reasons that we work so well with the federal agencies and leaderships in the USDA, is the White House, because we never ask for anything.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that I credit McCormick and Company, that we never ask for any funding from anyone. We don't co-sponsor anything.
Mm-hmm.
So McCormick wanted us to be always independent. So we have the funding to do things that is important for the goal and objectives of the Institute. So from that standpoint, it's very easy. They would contact us. They know that this is something they want to do, and we look at it. If it is on the culinary level, because if it is in a culinary level,
mm-hmm.
and it can be published in a referee journal, there are some topics that become more important. Okay, for example, I give a lot of credit to the Biden administration for really bringing the whole issue of nutrition insecurity and food equity
mm-hmm.
to the top of their priorities. And actually, we were doing that as part of the McCormick Science Institute. We were funding research on different things in different ethnicities, different food, different groups, even age, all of these things. But now I think that, for example, we are, if there is someone who's looking at that, we will be, we will fund the project that what spice and herb can do at a culinary level that can help
mm-hmm.
with the food, with the nutrition and security. Because, if you can make, because when you look at the food system, you always go with the 3 A's. These are very critical for food. The 3 A's are accessibility, availability, and affordability.
Mm-hmm.
So is the food accessible? Means that people can go and in a right distance. For example, unfortunately in many of our places in the urban areas, we have food deserts, which is very, very unfortunate. But in general, what people have access to the food. Second one, is it available? Which is different than accessibility, because, for example, like apples used to be available 100 years ago only in certain seasons. Mm-hmm. So cucumber, you're available in summer, nothing. So availability is very important, because you want to create your supply chain that makes food available all year round. And affordable. Is it, something that the average consumer can boot and within the budgetary limit? So it's just that, and that is one of the beauties of spice and herb, because they are accessible, is available, and available all 12 months everywhere you go, and mm-hmm. also they're very affordable, because when you look at the spice and herb the level that is being used in food, mm-hmm. is a very minute expense cost of a diet. It may be a couple of % or something like that, because you only added very little to food to make it more delicious and healthier.
Yeah. Speaking of delicious, and you mentioned before, as we're talking about health and wellness, if it's not delicious, people aren't going to eat it. You're not going to impact the behavior. You're not going to impact health. And last time we chatted a couple of years ago, you talked about this really unique partnership that you organized for the organization. It was back in 2013 with IBM. Once again, you have all this data from 100 plus years that you've been in business there on sensory and culinary and the whole area of the flavor. That's a very unique area of chemistry and science itself. Talk a little bit, if you would, about sort of where you are. I think the prediction in 2013 was that, hey, 2021, your AI is going to be doing a lot of this flavoring stuff. Talk a little bit about where you've gone with all that, if you would, and sort of connecting back to this health and wellness thing. And at the same time, are there new uses for technologies like AI at the McCormick Science Institute? And thinking to some of this really in-depth understanding of the herbs still, the combinatorial stuff. Where are we going with some of these new technologies? What gets you excited?
Thank you very much for asking the question. I think that this is one of the future programs for McCormick Science Institute, is that how can we create, and we are at the moment, we are in a conversation with some partners on doing that, is that how can we make the information more available to the consumers around the world? So, for example, we have a website, McCormickscience.com, that is being, visited, but not at the level that we want. In a sense, is mostly a very scientific, website. Is there any way that we can do, for example, can we create pages for McCormick Science Institute in different social platforms that the consumer would have more access, not to, do advertising, not to do lobbying, but to sharing the science in a language and lexicon that average consumer would appreciate. And that is one of our programs actually for the next 2-3 years, is that how might we, and it may have application for AI there or not, but as we create, just like I believe that in 20 years, there is hardly any activity that is not AI based, because the amount of information is so high. So we can collect all the information that is not only from McCormick Science Institute, from outside, related to the topic of our interest, and how we can slice and dice it in a way that an average consumer would appreciate in every language that there is. So it would be in 150 countries or 30 languages and so forth. So that is in the future. I think there is. I don't think that is any way avoidable actually. So we are very excited about it as we speak about really how can we help consumer appreciate the goodness of spice and herbs and the role that it can play in their, as I said, in all the three things. It makes their food more enjoyable, more experiencing. It makes it healthier, and also goes with the consumer trend, especially for the new generation of is this sustainable? Are we helping the planet? Yes. There is no question that we can make. For example, one of the big things now for the consumer trend, especially for the younger generation, is to use more plant-based proteins and food. So this is now, spice and herb can play a significant role, and it does play a significant role in making plant food and plant protein taste better. And so it's just there is a lot to be done. At the same time, also add those beneficial bioactives that are inherently naturally in the spice and herb. So it just is an opportunity for a scientist. Is like for a kid going to the candy store, because there is no end to it. That's what I believe that the institute would thrive even 20 years from now, 30 years, because there is so much to do that would help the consumer, the public, and that is really the mission of the institute, is to help public. There is and that is the directive from the company in 2006 that has not changed now, and I don't see any indication or reason that the company would change their view of how McCormick and McCormick Science Institute could be. Is a thought leadership gift, basically, for the benefit of everyone.
And speaking of public benefit, I've read materials of yours over the years. You're very passionate also about public health in general, and obviously we've been through a major public health issue the last couple of years. Again, plants have for 1 billion years been very good at fighting the same microbes that have been infecting us. Obviously, a lot of the antibiotic world sort of comes out of the fungal community, microbial, but the plants have also contributed there, especially with a lot of anti-cancer medicines throughout the last century. Any interesting direction you're going, things you're seeing, research that interests you, Ahmed, in terms of the antimicrobial connection here, the ability, I think we chatted in the past about how you could take an interesting spice of some nature to help replace certain preservatives or other synthetic preservatives. What are you seeing in general in sort of the whole anti-infective space in terms of tapping some of this plant knowledge on how to fight off some of these microbes and viruses in the future?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question, because when we talk about bacteria, for example, what McCormick Science has done in the past few years, and will do it in much more, in a more effective way in the future, is to look at the gut health. I think that the gut is almost like a forgotten organ. I believe 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, the role of gut health becomes a lot more prominent in the public arena. people appreciate it. And spice and herb can play a big role. So far, we have done studies both at Penn State and UCLA.
Mm-hmm.
And also, we are doing some work and to continue that on Illinois Institute of Technology about the role of spice and herbs in gut health. But I think this is an area that is ripe for a lot more work. We are learning. This is, if you go to, for example, to American Society of Nutrition or any other biochemical meetings and so forth, even now that it's virtual, you will see that there are several symposiums on gut health. So gut health becoming more and more prominent in people, and there are some hype in it that it can do so many different things. We are scientists, so we focus only on science, but I believe that spice and herbs, as indicated in the few studies that we have done, that there is a definitely benefit to spice and herbs in managing. There are talking that many of these diseases that humans are facing is because of the new regimen that we have had that is impacted the gut health or gut microflora. So this is an area that we are very excited to work, because we think that spice and herb can contribute to the betterment of human life and human quality of life by illuminating something about what spice and herb and how those combinations would help you with managing your gut bacteria to be effective in your health, basically.
Absolutely. Yeah, the microbiome has come up over and over on the show, and not just the gut microbiome, but the oral microbiome and potential connections to Alzheimer's disease, and also, yeah, so the connections there are fascinating. I think once again, if we could through initiatives like McCormick Science Institute sort of really understand the potential there, I think there's a tremendous benefit.
That is one of the things that we are so excited about, because there is something that is available to everyone.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
there are several thousand years of observational and empirical data behind it. And new research that is done not only by McCormick Science Institute, but others, that shows that these are good stuff. And it really helps you not only with enjoying your food and with managing your salt and saturated fat and sugar intake, also has, on a culinary level, in long-term health benefits that it just is available to you at a very affordable cost. Why don't you use it?
Yeah.
There is no downside to it, technically.
Coming back, Hannah, to the 3 A's, the access, the affordability, and the availability, it gets me thinking, because, I'll go into my local supermarket nowadays, and there's all sorts of produce that wasn't there a couple of years ago. I don't know what half of it is, but it looks interesting, but it's new. And it was, whether it was in the rainforest in Brazil for thousands of years, and they were eating it down there. We're just starting to consume that now here. New spices and herbs. Are you? Obviously, we have so much to learn about the cinnamons and the turmerics of the world still. But do you guys get new things in occasionally that maybe we don't use in the United States, but are used wherever in Southeast Asia or Africa, wherever? Because I know you're all over the world. But what's happening in terms of new spices on the scene?
First of all, when we talk, I'm glad you brought up the issue of the grocery store. Yeah. I think you can Google it and say, the typical grocery store of 1920s.
Yeah.
And you see that there are only maybe a couple of hundred items there.
Yeah.
And they are packaged in a very, kind of rudimentary to today's standards. And so what the food science profession has done has created the safest and cleanest supply chain of food system in the history of mankind. Until maybe 20, maybe 50 years ago, so foodborne diseases was one major cause of public health.
Yep.
And so all of these things, and also what we have done, our food science profession has done, things like as hygiene and fortification.
Yep.
You know, all these vitamin deficiencies and all of these things, they're all technically gone because, or almost gone because of the fortification that has been around for. So from standpoint of spice and herbs, there are, the sky is the limit because, you know, first of all, consumption of spice and herb in the United States has grown by USDA data like a 300-400% per capita in the last, since 1960s.
Mm-hmm.
We were used to have a very bland food, and now it's all these ethnic restaurants that is created that everywhere you go, and people are interested in going out and experience it. So the consumption of spice and herb have increased definitely. And because of that, new spices are coming to the play. Because there are spices that are very popular, for example, in India or China or Germany, you know, Thailand, that the consumer here may not be, you know, very well versed into that, and vice versa. And with this universality of it, globalization has led to make it a lot more available. For example, is a very good example of it. In say 20 years ago, turmeric was not popular in the U.S.
Oh yeah,
and it was really only on. Basically, Americans knew that mostly through curry food and Indian food. But today, the consumption is significantly more, and people are really appreciated that it also has a very special flavor that, you know, you like when you get into when you blend it with other spice and herbs and other food. At the same time, it's very good for you. So I think the future is that we will see more spice and herbs in the market that are being used and has been used for hundreds of years in other places, and now being introduced in the US and vice versa. So I think from that standpoint, you will definitely see more variety, no question.
Excellent, excellent. And you know, coming back to food as medicine theme again, I know, I think it was just about 2 months ago, you were on a panel at the Food as Medicine conference in San Francisco, and sort of talking about sort of the landscape and sort of, you know, as you've mentioned today on this show, what are some of the issues that we need to deal with in terms of further educating, and I thought it was interesting because the panel that you were on, where you're talking about consumer education and behavior, you were there with insurance company folks as well as HMO people. I was just intrigued by that. Is there, because, you know, we always hear about sort of, you know, the connection here, of course, common sense to keeping costs down and reducing the healthcare costs. What are you hearing from, as you go to these conferences and you spread the word about, you know, changing consumer behaviors and the importance of herbs and spices and so forth? What are you hearing back from some of these colleagues in some of these tangential areas on how the need in terms of their domains, and not just managing the healthcare, but managing healthcare costs overall, and how herbs and spices can contribute there and what they're doing on that front?
Well, I wish I could have I will tell you what I want to say, but my section was postponed from San Francisco to our meeting in May in Chicago.
Okay.
The reason is that I felt very strongly that I would rather present it when it is in person.
I see.
I wanted to get really into conversation with a outstanding group of scientists and medical doctors that are in the audience. So we will have a meeting late May in hopefully in Chicago, so we can have a very good conversation. Yeah. But these are all activities that they all have its own place.
Yep.
Because when you are when someone has clinical problems, then the question is, can we make food part of the solution for that person? Mm-hmm. The answer is absolutely yes. You can do. It's not going to be replacing anything, but could be a component of how you approach a patient and something like that. And this has been done for years in the hospital and so forth, but now we are making it more prominent, more scientifically. So there are a distinguished group of doctors and scientists to work on these things, and I was honored to be invited, but I decided to decline because I wanted to do it in Chicago in person. So there is a lot to do about is that how can you make these things actionable by a typical consumer? Because that is, at the end, is the most important thing. For example, if somebody has clinical issues that's something that a trained dietitian and a medical doctor would be the best to advise that person, because they are under their supervision, basically. But in general, if you look at what is a healthy diet will look like for the general population, that is sustainable and can continue for food, is that, you know, it's just about, we say, daily caloric intake about 1,800 to 2,500. And that is depending on our body build and the level of exercise that people do and so forth. But if you have a diet that is about 1,800 calories a day to 2,500 calories a day, depending on your needs, and there are two major elements that would help you sustainable a really a healthy life. One is moderation.
Okay.
Second is variety. By variety, I mean that you should use every food group. That's why many of these diets that people say today for the public, that doesn't work, because don't eat this, don't eat animal protein, don't eat gluten, it usually wouldn't work, because people after a while get tired. So use all the food groups, but do them in moderation.
Got it.
So in a level that is not really of, you know, you only eating one thing. Second one is that really focus on things that are plant-based, such as fruits, vegetable, spice and herbs, you know, pulses, and also now this the plant-based protein. I think you concentrate on that, and also manage your salt intake, saturated fat intake, and add the sugar intake. So, you know, don't make that 2,500 calorie, 1,800 calorie, you know, like a 40% of added sugar. No, I think to say 6% or 10%, something like that, then it makes it work. And so it really makes your food for people so they can experience, they can enjoy, and it also is tasty for them, it's healthy for them, and it's sustainable to the planet. And I think that's the recipe for success. If you ask me what the success would look like 20, 30 years from now, I would say is flavorful, healthy eating. Manage variety, manage moderation, and manage intake of things that we know that is good for you, and manage the lower intake things that we know that on the higher level can be detrimental to you.
Yep.
Now, then, you know, it's not some say, oh, don't eat this and don't eat it doesn't work really. It really have to have all the food groups and managing the variety and also moderation.
Excellent message.
Because, you know, that's a fact, and the unfortunate case of the pandemic showed us that we have a serious public health issues.
Oh yeah.
And
absolutely.
So is it obesity? Is it sedentary lifestyle that we have? And one of the areas that people don't talk about it that much is stress.
Yeah.
Stress, it really is a mother of many, many issues that we have, health issues that we have. I read somewhere that the level of stress that an 18-year-old today faces, that just graduating from high school, the level of stress that person has would have made that person hospitalized in 1940s and 50s. So the level of stress that we are facing now in the kids, they grow up extremely competitive. They just almost forget about that they are kids and need to play everything. So so these are all issues and also environmental pollution. There is a lot of, this is multifaceted.
Sure.
Really, one of the things about all these issues that now the new administration is doing is very, I'm very thankful and supportive of inequity in global warming, in things that make it really a sustainable planet for all of us. But we have issues that we have to deal with it. But we got to make the cure something that is manageable and doable by the consumer. So, and that is really flavorful, healthy eating, I believe, is not answer to everything, but is something good to build on, basically.
Absolutely. And we will we'll be watching for you in Chicago, and definitely have you on for an update after that. But speaking of that, I mean, what else is happening in 2022 that you might want to talk about? Other places we can see in action, follow you, other things that are going to be happening that you can mention on the show at this time.
Well, I think that the thing that I do now and have done in the flat, but we want to intensify in the next couple of years, is to how to create better partnership, create almost like a triple helix of the partnership between academia, private sector, and federal government. So because really academia is the brain power. One of the biggest strength of the United States especially is our universities. Harvard, Tufts, Stanford, all the, Ohio States, Kansas, Washington, these are all magnificent institutions that they have tremendous amount of brain power that can help push the program forward. The other one is private sector, because they are the people who really, the companies that they deliver food, they commercialize. So the delivery system, the product is with an execution is with the private sector. And federal government is really about stewardship, and also about not only stewardship, but also about policy. So federal government has a major role to play in food, agriculture, and nutrition, in creating policies that is conducive to improving quality, and they are doing a great job on that. So I think my effort in the next several years is not only to help with the, improving and creating science in support of the goodness of spice and herb, but also how to create how to help create that triple helix, that we use in maximizing the benefit of magnificent universities that we have, and also the companies that are doing their best to help. But so we need to be a more kind of like partnership with them to see what they can do even better. And then also federal government that's why we are working with the federal agencies and so forth constantly, because we really want, first of all, we tremendously appreciate what they do and all the work that they're doing. For example, USDA now has a major program on thrifty food plants. That is going to have a major impact on the health of the nation. And we are doing our best to support it, whatever we can do. There is a proposal that there should be a second conference, on White House conference on health, food, health, nutrition, and health. And this was the first one was done, I think, like 50 years ago in early 1970s by President Nixon. And that was the result. Because of that, we created the guidelines for Americans, all the good things. And I think this is a time to with the stewardship of the president, to put together a panel and making sure that we set the time with the agenda for the next 5, 10, 20, 30 years. Because I think with the three, we do what we ought to do. We owe it to our people to provide them with the insight and in an actionable language and lexicon that people can use. Because science could be very confusing. You see it now because one scientist says that he goes to this network, the other one goes to that network. So people get confused about what is in it for them, which one they should listen. So that's what the stewardship of federal government comes in, to create a steady flow of actionable, sound scientific thing in language that public understand and appreciate, and then they support it. Because federal government, USDA has a major program on nutrition education and so forth through extension program. When I was at Washington State faculty at Washington State University, part of my job as a land grant university was to help with the extension, talking to the farmers, talking to the housewives, talking to families, go to churches, go to all the things, to talk about our program. And that was extremely helpful, because this is how so this is something that we have to intensify. I'm very thankful that the insightful leadership of McCormick and Company has provided us with a platform that, that everybody would benefit. And so, and eventually McCormick would benefit, but it really is a tall leadership gift that, this is something that we give back to country, not only to US, around the world, because it's not really only in the US, but I think that we can do a lot better around the world.
Definitely. And yeah, I mean, it's been, as I said, I've been following you the last couple of decades, and it's going to be fun to continue to follow you the next couple of decades, because you're really seeing all of this come to life at this level, and dedication. It's just so impressive, and really wishing you the best with all of this, and the amazing team of thought leaders that you put together there to make it all happen.
I don't have any regrets in life, because from when I was 14 years old, I decided to do this. And now sometimes I wish I was 14 years old again. So much to do and such a good thing. So it's energizing for everybody. Yeah. Is because we have no agenda other than serving. And that is something that when I grew up in, you heard about it, but you were not at that age that to remember that, personally experience it. But I grew up at the time of President Kennedy and Dr. King. And so one of the themes that both of them had was service. Yep. And not asking anything for yourself, but asking what you can do for others. Yep. And that has been my North Star all my life, because what can we do together to really help mankind, and we all benefit, including myself. So this is something, because when you the tide rises, all the boats would benefit from it, regardless of the size. Sure. That's the mission. So I wish I was 14 years old again to do even more of it for a much longer time. But I'm very excited.
I'm sure there's a spice combination in there that'll get that done as well. So.
Well, it's true that people would live much longer in the future. Partly because of our healthcare, partly because our food supply chain, understanding of how to do all the nutrition things. And I really believe that spice and herb would play much bigger role in public health 20 years down the road than it is today. So in the way that it was doing it 2,000 years ago, because that was the medicine. Yep. I think 20 years down the road, people say, wow, this is great, because this is delicious, is healthy, and sustainable. Cannot get any better.
Absolutely. Fascinating vision. I really look forward to the next stage of it for everybody that is going to be listening to this episode across the podcast or watching on the YouTube channel. You've been listening to the amazing Dr. Hamed Faridi, Executive Director, McCormick Science Institute, ushering on a whole new generation of flavorful, healthy eating for health, wellness, longevity, in a sustainable, accessible, and affordable way. Hamed, it was great seeing you again. I want to thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to do this for us. Obviously, thank you for everything you're doing there at MSI. And as we say on this show, thank you for helping to create a better tomorrow for all of us. A really great story.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.